Let's go ahead and pray together. We'll get started with those of you that are here, and I'm sure there'll be a few others walking in the doors here as we get going. Well, let's pray. Father, I thank you that we can be here together tonight, and God, that I thank you that you care about us, that you have a purpose for us. And Lord, as we continue to understand that, I pray that you will speak clearly to our hearts. And that, God, that we will listen, and that we will be careful to get out of your way, and that we will be your instruments and not those that cause a roadblock. And I pray these things tonight in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, I put a little more distance between me and y'all tonight so I could get my mask off, but the reality is I was a lot more contagious last Sunday night than I am tonight. And that's the sad part of the whole COVID thing, right? Is you're the most contagious the 2 days before you get sick. And I got sick early Monday morning. So anyway, but I am going to separate just a little bit more from you. I should be fine, but I'm just tired. My 10-minute Sunday afternoon nap, I blinked, it was 40 minutes. And I was actually mad at myself. It's like, why can't I stay asleep? And I looked at my watch, I was like, oh. So anyway, I guess it is affecting me a little bit here. But I appreciate y'all being here tonight. And we continue to look at, we kind of talked about change a little bit every week, right? So we're going to look at change a little bit more in depth tonight. And then about half the time, we're going to spend it in some small group time. The kids did help a whole bunch this afternoon on my stuff, but we'll see if that's important here in a second as I look at a whole bunch of random letters going down the middle of my page. No telling what you have on yours. I already saw a few random letters that were there. So that's what I get for leaving it open on the desk. But change. Why is change so hard? You ever wondered about that? Why is change so hard? You know, tradition. People like tradition because you know the rules, right? If things are the way they've always been, you know the rules, you know the parameters, you know what to expect. There's not something strange that's going to happen. You kind of, it's predictable. And I want you to just look at this evolution of change on one of my favorite subjects. Yeah, Tara will take that one. That's the only one she cares for. These were great years, though.
Ford introduces Mustang II, the right car at the right time.
The sounds get me excited. That's a great body right there.
And I like the fact that it bears his name on the back.
That's what Johnson's driving now. Those numbers right up there are just pretty interesting. They had like a 10-minute version of that that's really good. But I didn't do that to you. That one skips a few cars. But, you know, Mustang has changed a little bit. And, you know, there's a reality here. That 1964 and a half, that's Tara's car. It's what she wants. When we started doing this Mustang, she's told me I cannot buy another one until she gets one of those. So I'm never going to have another Mustang. But, you know, and And then, there's this one problem that happens with the Mustang and the evolution of the Mustang. And that was 1974. You know what happened in 1974? I was born. And they decided to ruin the Mustang the year I was born. But in the late 60s, the Mustang had about 330 horsepower, which was a lot of horsepower back in those days. In 1974, that thing had 103. You know what happened in those days, right? They started having gas mileage expectations. And anyway, they ruined the Mustang for a lot of years until they started figuring out how to mess with the gas mileage a little bit better. And then all of a sudden, the horsepower starts going up and up and up and up and up. And that last one they showed you, I think, has like 550 horsepower and probably like 650 torque or something like that. It's absolutely crazy. And then the new electric ones, the race car electric one that Ford's making is like 1,000 torque. 1,000. Anyway, why do I bring that up? Because I like to talk about cars. But no, things change and they evolve, and sometimes the changes they made just weren't very good. Sometimes they improve things quite dramatically. The risk, think about the risk that Ford made, 15 years ago now or something, when they started putting a V6 in their most powerful pickup trucks. I predicted they'd fail. Anybody else? I thought, nobody wants a V6. They're like, well, the V6 is what's pulling, it has all this torque and it can pull however many pounds and it's the most powerful Ford truck. And I'm like, I'm not going to buy a V6. Guess what I'm driving? Yeah. That thing has all the horsepower. It pulls my RV down the road just like it's sitting still. And it's amazing what that thing is able to do. But someone had to take the risk at some point and move on. Now, the reason that change becomes so hard is because we've all can remember the times that they made 1974 Mustangs. You remember that time we changed and it didn't work? Remember that time y'all changed and you took something away from me that I liked and then nothing took its place? Those are hard. But if there hadn't been change, we'd still be driving 1964 and a half Mustangs, and they wouldn't be very cool right now because they're only cool because they're old. Because that 1964 and a half had about 250 horsepower and it drove like a tank, and those seats were not very comfortable. I had a friend that had one, and you don't want it to be your everyday driver. My son drives a 2015. I drive it every day. But anyway, change. It's hard. There's transition. The experience of change. Change is that which, let me see how to explain this. The tangible change is the situation, the decisions, the new programs. It's the thing that you touch. You have this change, and it's something that is real. Change isn't just a perceived idea. All right, it's not just a dream. We aren't scared of dreams. But it is the tangible change itself that you're going through in this transition. And the transition is the emotional process that people go through. So when change happens, and it is real, you go through an emotional process in your life. And this emotional process helps you to get through the change. And I don't know why I pointed it back there. That's pretty cool. But here's a little kind of a visual to kind of explain the three things that you are going through when you are experiencing change. And so think about this as the change happens here. Okay, and so this is kind of a timeline of what people go through as you are experiencing change. Some of y'all don't see this light, do you? Y'all see it? Okay, I thought last time there's some people that were struggling seeing it. So, but yeah, you start here, and you're moving down in this time, and kind of I feel like this, as far as this direction goes, there's a lot of things this can represent. As a leader, I kind of think about it as the number of people that are going through these different areas. All right? For you personal, it's probably, how much it's hurting as you go that direction, or how much of yourself is, at these different levels at different times. But kind of think of it as the number of people that are in these different areas, because everybody in here is a little different. There's some people that just love change. And if you're one of those people that just absolutely loves things to be different, and you're just fine if every single morning your house was a different color, and you're just fine that every time, if you went to work, you had a whole new set of rules, and you just like, I love change, you probably wouldn't be Southern Baptists and sit in this room today. But, the other ones that as soon as you introduce the change, they're already at the new beginning because they're excited about a new beginning. All right, and then there's going to be those that from the very beginning, they're kind of in this neutral zone. We'll see. I'm all right with this. We'll see how it goes. But there's a whole bunch of people. Most people are in the ending, losing, letting go stage. And let me explain these stages a little bit more in depth. But you cannot lead change. And I'm going to talk to you as leaders today, because if I'm the only one over the next year or 2 years that's leading the change, it has fallen from the beginning. It's going to take all of us as leaders leading and encouraging and helping people, and then understanding the people. Because there's some of you that you're going to trust the pastor, you're going to follow him, and even if it's hard and some things might get weird or whatever, that's all right, I'm going to follow you. And then someone's going to come up and go, well, I can't believe that, and you're going to be going, what's the matter with you? Because just get on board. And they're going to leave feeling unvalued and unappreciated, and we can't have that. We need to understand that everybody's going to go through change differently, and it's our part to help lead them through it in a healthy way. So helping people through these 3 phases. And that first one is the letting go of the old ways and the identities. There's something you have to leave behind. People experience loss and grief before they experience the benefits. Every time they're going to experience what they've lost, it's going to hurt before they could ever realize there's any good that comes out of it. That's where most people are. Let me give you a good example of this. And I don't have a good example for you because I haven't heard any good stories I thought would be great. So let me give you a story of my previous church, but one that I think that you can relate to. And that is about 4 years before I became their pastor, a couple pastors before me led them to leave their worship center, their sanctuary, and move into the gym. So they remodeled the gym, and they were not where they could stay. They wanted to be in one service and not 2, and so they were determined to do anything they could. They didn't think they could afford to build a new building, so they went and took the gym. And I can tell you a million reasons why you should never ever do that, but because they saved money, but they used a resource they already had that was important to the life of the church that they took away. And it hurt them for a long time. But anyway, they moved into the gym. They'd remodeled it to a worship center. It was a nice room. They did a good job of it, and they did the thing you do. You put the chairs in, right? And then they had their sanctuary on the other end of the building that was sitting there. Actually, you want to know what theirs looked like? This. Okay, take away, before they did the remodel in here, it's what, there's the same exact, it must have come in the same box. All right, so, but they had it there, and they didn't quite have the vision to do what y'all did to expand your seating, but they left the chapel. But they lost a gym, and now they had a worship center, and they had their sanctuary chapel. They renamed chapel. Why in the world do they need 2 rooms that did the same thing? Well, they realized, okay, we got rid of our gym. Now we don't have a place for our kids to play on Wednesday nights. The Wandas needed a rec room, and didn't really want them playing down there in that new room, even though we could get the chairs out of the way. And what if we take the pews out of the chapel? This happened before I came, so I was never blamed for this one. And they decided, okay, we'll take the pews out of the chapel, and we'll make it more of a multi-purpose room, and we'll let the kids play in there. They got rid of the pews. They didn't care about the kids playing in there. They were mad because they lost the pews that were never getting used. It was a room that never got used. And they were people that, they had fights at the church, and it wasn't as bad as some fights that happen out there. But they had people really mad. No, I don't think anybody ever left the church over that reason, but there were people upset, tears in their eyes, because the church got rid of the pews. Were those pews serving any purpose? No. Were those pews comfortable to sit in? No! Come on. If you're one of those that's like, I don't wish we had pews. No, you don't. These chairs are awesome. But, and did they need a place for the kids? Was it awesome that the kids were playing in there? It was. But there were people that it took them years before they ever realized and accepted the benefit that they received by doing that to that room. Loss. And people experience it, and as pastors, sometimes we miss it when it's going to cause as much loss as it did. I think the pastor at the time was shocked that it became a big a deal as it did. So, the experience loss. Number 2 is the navigate an in-between time, the neutral zone. And the neutral zone is this creative tension that helps people to have innovation. It helps them begin to think differently about it. Okay, so in this neutral zone time, they still experience some of the loss, but they're beginning to see how the good is there. They're opening their eyes and realize, this isn't so bad. And maybe during this time, it's kind of like an equal thing. Okay, I lost this, and we got something this is okay, but they're not really seeing it as something that is necessarily better. But then number 3 is to make a new beginning. And then, you can see it. Remember the people of Israel, when they were leaving Egypt and heading to the promised land, a few times on the trip, they stopped and they grumbled. And one of the times where they stopped and were frustrated with Moses and God and everybody else, the one time was the Red Sea. It's like, why'd you bring us out here to die? We might as well just stayed and been there. They're crying, because you just brought us out to die. But then this next time, they start, I just wish we could eat the food of Egypt. If we could just have some more of that food. I miss the food. We're having to eat this manna every single day. They're forgetting how hard they were having to work for the food that they were eating before and how easy God had made it for them. And all they could think about was, I just want something different to eat. Just give me some food that I know and something different. And they questioned the leadership because they were in the land of the unknown. But where were they going? To the land that was flowing with milk and honey. A place that's so cool, when they sent out the spies, they came back with those grapes between the stick. A cluster of grapes so big that it's touching the ground. I just can't picture them carrying that around without strutting a little bit. Look what we got. Look at these grapes. It's going to be... Do what? Yeah. How about one? You want to hear? It's amazing what they were going to. And eventually, they had the new beginning. Eventually, they were able to stop looking at what they were losing and began to look at how awesome it was that they were getting. Now, it took them 40 years before the next generation said, okay, those grapes are worth it. but they eventually found their way to a new beginning. So, John Cotter has a book called Leading Change. It's been out for a while now, but he gives us a strategy for leading change. I just want to go through these 8 real quick, because I don't want us to spend a lot of time here. I really want us to spend time on our group stuff tonight. I hope about half our time we can spend on that. But let me just kind of go through these, because if we're going to lead change, we need to, this is what a leader can do. Increase the urgency. Increase the urgency. Can I give you a secret? What was last week? Those of you that were part of last week, if you've gone back and watched it, if you weren't here, is it urgent? I hope that we looked at that. And I wasn't, as a leader, it's not my place to manufacture urgency, because if I'm just trying to make you want to change just for change's sake, I'm not doing my job. But if we look at the stats and we look at our survey results and we look at how we relate to other churches, we have some issues. Some scary ones. So, one of the reasons I was helping us go through that is I'm trying to help us understand that there's some urgency here. It's important. Number 2, to create a guiding coalition. Let me give you my secret number 2. Why are we doing these classes on Sunday nights? I'm trying to build a coalition. I want people that are on my side. If that's a great way to put it. It's like, I want you to understand and to see things the way that God has helped me to see things, so that there's a group of us, a coalition. It's not just me standing up as Moses saying, hey, come follow me. It's me standing up as one of the members of this church, given a specific role, saying, hey, we need to do this, and who's with me? And so it is a coalition. It's building other people. And let me say this, as a leader within this church, we all need to be creating our own little coalitions. Not this, come be on my side, because those things can be bad, right? You can use that to be a very negative thing. However, we need to be hoping that for people that aren't coming and you're seeing those people, that you're kind of letting them know some of these things and helping prepare them for the things that are to come. Number 3, develop vision and strategy. If we're going to lead change, we need people to see where we're going and a strategy to get there. That's what we're doing as well. When we start our summit in a couple of weeks, that summit, you're going to begin to picture where I think you'll begin to see kind of what's happening here and how this begins to work together. Number 4, to communicate the vision. So it's not just to have a vision and a strategy, but we need to be communicating that vision. We need to be helping people to know it, to understand it, to give pictures of what this could look like when we get to the end. Number 5, empowering people to broad-based action. Our structure that we will have in place by God's grace, voting on in November, that's my goal. If we were able to get there, that structure must be a structure that empowers people to act. Structure, we don't need bureaucracy. We need a structure that empowers people to do ministry. We want people to do ministry, and we need to find a catalyst to help people to do that. Number 6, to generate short-term wins. As we go forward and people begin to lose, they start to, there's something that has changed, there's something that's invaluable to them that has changed, that's different. We need them to see immediately some good results. Short-term gains. We need a win. Sometimes it's just a little win. But we're going to figure out, if we do this, if we see this happen, we need to be celebrating those things, pointing those things out. I tell you, I'm not as good at that. I feel like I fail sometimes in always bringing it up and let people know all those things. But that's communication, and we're not always very good at it. We want to be telling those stories. Telling the stories of what's happening because of yes, it's cost us something. And yeah, it's not been easy. And you've lost however many Sunday afternoons. But you know what? It's been worth it because, look, we've seen this happen because of this. And to tell those stories. Number 7, consolidating gains. So then it is, after we get going on this, it will be, don't give up. It's all right. Look at all the small things that are happening. We're moving in the right direction. It's easy, a year down the road to go, okay, we've tried this. Let's go back. Let's go back. Well, we got to continue to build the story. See what's happening? Look where we're going, and look at the things that are already happening that are helping us to get there. We're making progress, encouraging the people. And number 8 is anchoring new DNA in the culture. Eventually, it becomes a completely new DNA. Let me go back up to this graph, and I haven't been moving my slides, but I'll blame it on COVID. So here we are. We are going to help people to get from here to here. But when things get really hard or there's a crisis, and somebody is like here, and let's say that some very prominent people are still here, and that's not unusual, and we have a crisis. Whatever kind of crisis that may be, we have a crisis. Everybody wants to go back to a default position in crisis. And what's the default position for someone that's here? Or even here? The way it used to be. And that's when you have someone in leadership go up and say, okay, we've tried it. Things are bad right now. Let's just go back and do it like we're doing. We're comfortable with that. It makes sense. Let's just go back and do it that way. Okay? Well, then you have somebody that's prominent here. And what usually is the case is because there's really more followers in the church than leaders in the church. You'll have a whole bunch of people that are attending, and maybe they're always the biggest givers or whatever, but they're already over here. They're liking it. And what does that do to the health of the church? Oh, there's a major conflict. And so it's important that we work hard as leaders in the church to encourage people to get through this neutral zone and into the new beginning phase. We have to encourage them because it's going to be important. It's going to take some people longer than others. It's just how it is. But what scared me the other 2 times I've done this is that in reality we're going to get a little weaker before we get stronger. Because of that truth right there. Because we're going to have some people that's going to take a little bit longer to see what we're doing and how it's going to work, and that's a good thing. And so we can't let that be the division itself. As leaders, we're going to encourage. We're going to do these things that I was talking about, help them to understand, tell them the stories, encourage them, say, it's all right, hang on, it's going to be all right. But we need to get everybody through this process as fast as we can in a way, and it's still going to take, probably 2 years to get to get 80% of the people over here. Hey, those are the ones I just talked about. To get 80% of the people over here, I'm going to guess it's going to take 2 years. So it's a process, and we're going to have to work at it. But in that in-between time, there's some instability that is there. And so, do we need to be praying through this? Oh my goodness, if we're not already praying through this, we need to be making that serious. Because it does going to mess with kind of that stability of leadership as we go. I've seen it in both churches. You have a time there that it doesn't feel very sturdy. It doesn't. You just know that you're just one little spark away from everybody wanting to run back to the way we were, or just giving up, and all the chaos that can happen and the church dynamics that go there. But God's grace, both times. Matter of fact, I was leaving Wewoka as they were, like, the month before they were voting to make it permanent. We had did we do a 1 year or 2 year trial? I think we did a 2 year trial. Instead of changing our constitution right away, because there were people still thinking I was a little crazy, we said, okay, let's just vote to put it on hold for 2 years, and let's do this for 2 years. And they agreed to that. But and then I leave the month before the vote, and I thought, oh no, there's no way. And there was someone that brought up, do we really want to do this? Pastor's gone. But the large chunk of the people in the room were like, no, why would we ever want to go back and do it that way? They were really, it was crazy because, I wasn't there to be the one to defend it, and yet there's people, they saw by that point, they were bought in. They didn't want to go back to what they were doing. They were ready, they were seeing some great things that were happening through it. So anyway, we as leaders, we need to realize this and understand where people are, and when you hear criticism, take it for what it is. They're in a sense of loss. Don't get mad at them or frustrated with them, or try to help them take the journey to get to where we're going. D.H. Lawrence says, so let me see all these things that I just talked about. That who needs PowerPoint? But D.H. Lawrence says, the world is not afraid of a new idea. You can pigeonhole or ignore an idea. It's afraid of a new experience. We're afraid of a new experience. We're afraid of a bad experience. But fear is always that of the unknown. Seldom do we fear that which is known. Sometimes, but most of the time it's a what if, what if, what if, what if. So, small group time. I'm really not sure if I'm not missing something here. So, my headlining here says GB, VBB, G, J, V, and B. That's what it's supposed to say. The initial question, why do we exist? And I'm not talking about as a person. I'm talking about as a church. Why does the church exist? Why does Del Norte Baptist Church exist? Why does the local church exist? Why has God put us here? The reality of our sin nature means we will always gravitate toward self-centeredness. Right? And so, if our natural ability is that we become self-centered, it's natural for us to become self-centered on the reason the church exists. Think about it. The church exists for me. The church exists for my Sunday school class. The church exists for my family. The church exists, It's easy to kind of, and we probably if we're taking a test, nobody's going to mark that box, but if we're truly true to ourselves, there's kind of a selfishness part about our church. So this tendency corrupts the clarity of our understanding and the priority of our obedience to the purpose for our existence as a church. And so when we get self-centered, we begin to lose the clarity of why God has our church existing. Because God's church does not exist for us. It is for Him. It's for His glory, not our glory. The reason the church is needed in this world isn't for us believers. I think there's something about the lostness that's around us that He's placed us here at this place for a time like this. Because if not, might as well just go straight to heaven. I always thought it'd be really cool. You just pray and ask Jesus to come in your life and I'm in heaven. One big problem with that, nobody else is going to hear the gospel. A lot of things that we think are priorities are important, but we are going to be doing them for eternity in heaven. There's a reason that He's left us here in this place and put us here for a purpose. So why is it that we exist? So we're going to do a brainstorming exercise. I want you to kind of work as small groups, 4 or 5 people, and I want you to brainstorm. And understand this is just the beginning of thinking through this process. All right, you're not trying to have a finished product here. We will be doing this in a more detailed way later. But this will add to some future discussion. But it is just a way for us to start thinking through our purpose. And hopefully this discussion and this kind of coming together to do this will cause you to go home and begin to explore it even more. But do not, if somebody does this in your group, you call them out, all right? Do not well, I know a church that says this. Well, I know that there's one group that used this. No. We're not looking for that. We're not looking for a pretty package, and we definitely don't want to look for something another church has done. We're unique. So don't be thinking, Saddleback Church just does these 5 things. It's not what we're after. All right, I just want you to talk and brainstorm these questions. What is on the heart of God? What are His priorities? What are His concerns? What does God care about? And then I want you to decide among yourselves, talk through it, and come up with about 4 to 6. I think I put 5 to 6 on here, but find you a good number that kind of incorporates those things. And then I want you to begin to talk about Scripture that mentions those things. And if you can find like 1 or 2 scriptures that has it all in there together, you get A+. And then under the synthesized part, 4 and 5, go through that, and then notice this Del Norte Baptist Church exists too. That's just a good way to kind of get you thinking about, why do we exist? What's our purpose? Why are we here? And so just kind of put something together. You can be as creative as you want to. We don't have a lot of time for you to be extremely creative, but more I want you to just be thinking through and beginning the process of putting together, why does God have us here? What does He care about? What does He want us to care about? And then, if you have time, go down into the reflection part. If not, that's going to be something you can reflect on your own time as well. But I want us to give us time at the end to kind of come back just quickly, kind of see where you're at on what you came up with. So you have 20 minutes. It's going to put us going over a little bit, but I think we need to do that. So 20 minutes for you to kind of do that as a group. All right, go. Appoint somebody in your group to be the leader. So make sure you write these things out as you synthesize them, just so that Tara's going to get a picture of it at the end to make sure that I have those, so I can kind of see what's going on in your minds. Thanks. All right, let's kind of wrap it up here and come back together. And we're just going to spend a quick couple minutes here. So somebody share with me what your group came up with, the top 5 or 6 answers of what is on the heart of God. Go ahead, Manny. Yes, do it.
Number 1, all people come to know.
Just a second. Hey guys, I'm going to grab this microphone. Oh, I just turned it off.
You make this report for us, okay? Number 1, all people come to know Him, and He will provide the opportunities for that to happen. Give Him the glory. His people will work together in harmony and unity, carry out His commandments, and carry out His commission. And we had 6, so they were automatic top 6. Okay?
Just talking for this group here.
What are y'all pointing at me for?
You have an ordination for that?
That's a sad thing. I've always said I'm just one of the sheep that they hung a bell on my neck. You remember that? Basically, it came down to what has been termed a long time ago as the 5 functions of the church. Do you remember those? Heard it a lot. Includes worship, includes evangelism, includes fellowship, ministry, and discipleship.
Very good.
And we have verses.
Ours were very similar. We came with seeking souls, make disciples, worship, equipping, and serving others.
Very good. I don't remember where the groups were here, so. Don't be judging people now. That's not the point.
Well, we had a lot of discussion, but one of the first was finding the lost, evangelism, and that includes outreach, discipleship. We spent a lot of time talking about youth groups and what that needs to look like these days versus the past. And one of the things we felt was there needs to be accountability within the youth group for young people and training the adult responsibilities so that when they arrive of age, they're taking up the shields of what we do.
You know, you brought that up. One thing that we will find is that when God shows us the purpose that we have as a church, that purpose will exist in every ministry. And so that's a good observation.
Ours was basically pretty much the same, right? God is willing that not any should perish, right? That's his heart. So that's what we should be really seeking, right? Making disciples, another one. Pretty much kind of the same of already what's been going around.
You didn't say where it was. 2 Peter 3:9.
Oh, yeah, well, that's the verse. We're not
Who's speaking here for this group?
Not this chapter.
Don't act like you're scared of Mike.
So what are we answering question number 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, the number 2 there.
Number 2?
The top
Top 5 or 6?
Yeah.
We have, our group wrote down love, salvation of people, make disciples, transform our community, increase population, corporate prayer, together prayer, and then center of spiritual awakening.
What about this group?
We only had 6, so they were our top 6. We had make disciples, teach the word, help others, fellowship of believers, that was helping other believers as well as helping them to grow, spread God's love, and do everything for his glory. And worship, we included that in the later. So we had 7.
We all have similar answers. It's like the Holy Spirit speaks to all of us in the same way. We have glorify God, love others, evangelism, truth, making disciples that make disciples.
Very good. And we got this. We got everybody? Was that everybody? Orchestra. I'm seeing things. It's all right. Okay, let me ask this on we can't go through everything. We can't go through everything, but does anybody find like one verse that incorporated almost everything that y'all did? What is 2 Peter 3:9? Say it one more time louder. Yeah, good verse. Very good. Yes. Matthew 28, 19 through 20. The Great Commission. Yep. 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Do you have that memorized? Mark 12, 30. Which one is that one? Yes.
You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, second is like this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Very good. Yep. That was actually our main verse at Wewoka. Remember that? She's like, what? I'm probably the only person still left in the whole church that would remember that. But very good. So, did anybody come up with a statement that you're using those ideas that just you just thought, man, this turned out just really good? So, Del Norte Baptist Church exists to share and show God's love. That's good. Yeah.
Kevin came up with love God, love the people, and love banana pudding.
I know get fellowship in there, and I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, that covers. Yeah, Barbara.
Just go and do.
Go and do. Walk the talk. I don't even know. I don't want to. All right. Very good. You got a picture of everybody's, right? So I'll look at more of your detailed stuff just to kind of see what's. Anyway, was that a helpful exercise? It was. I hope it was, because we don't always think through things in that way. Like I said, there'll be a time that this will get deeper. I cannot remember if that happens in a summit or if that's just a smaller group that we put together. I can't remember, but I don't remember much tonight. So anyway, sign up for the summit out here. If you haven't signed up, please go ahead and sign up. Mainly, the reason I'm asking people to sign up for the summit and not just worry about the meal is because I want to see who's not signed up so that we can go and get them. So if you don't put your name on there, know the pastor's coming to get you. Somebody's going to be out of town, so I'm already after. No, but it's that's the main reason I'm doing that is I want to see who's. It kind of helps me know who's coming. That also will help me know how many. Make sure we get enough chairs and tables set up and all that stuff. But there's also another reason, and I want to make sure that we get some of those people here that haven't been coming on Sunday nights necessarily, but need to be in the room that day. And so that will help us as a staff kind of go, oh, who's missing? So please go ahead and sign up for that. And there's a place you sign up for the meal there as well. And it says childcare there on there through 6-year-olds. I thought we were going through 6th grade. Is that not right? I think that we are. So we'll make that. Do you remember if we told you other ways? I think we. Okay. I think we're going to go through 6th grade if we can. So that's still not a whole lot of kids, but I don't want a reason for the parents not to stick around. And I think that some of our elementary parents would be kind of lost what to do with their kids during that time. So anyway, we'll make that change. Anything else? If you need if you have missing any of the stuff, and last week did have the test results. If you didn't get last week's, you'll probably want to see that. Thank you so much. You're dismissed.